The next presentation then is Patrick Osborne from PwC. I'm glad to have Patrick back because he helped us on the workshops as well. He did a very interesting workshop on smart contracts. And his presentation is entitled Blockchain and Smart Contracts for Know Your Customer, KYC. So Patrick, pleasure to have you here again. And there we go. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. So it's almost a continuation of what I was talking about on Wednesday. I guess I should just introduce myself again a little bit. My name is Patrick Osborne. I'm an associate at PwC in the Capital Project Services CPS department under Deals and Forensic Services. So we kind of look at defunct major capital projects and also large mega capital projects and how to get them complete, especially with like cost overruns and schedule delays. So thank you for having me today. I was just going to do some of the slides are from Wednesday, but I'll go through them. The major thing is the KYC related use case, and then industry outlook, and then also energy, utilities, and resources perspective. What I should say is just a disclaimer is that PwC isn't currently doing like this KYC related use case, but it's something we probably would maybe look into in the future. It's just kind of a idea sharing and getting the conversation really started. But it's something that we have talked about internally in just like brainstorming. So that's what we're here today for. Just we kind of already know this since we've been here for half a week. Just introduction to blockchain, siloed data sets, large effort to manage data integrity, share recorded transactions, immutability, tamper proof. That'll come into how I look at like the KYC that I'm presenting today. We kind of already know the diagrams a little bit where data is going to a central or a distributed ledger, and then also shared in between individuals or nodes. That's kind of what both the left and right of the pictorial show. And then yes, accuracy, transparency, cost effectiveness, collaboration. This is one of the probably the report that came out from PwC a year ago. They really haven't done another major report. I try to find more, but that's why I guess as PwC people, we keep this one in. The industry outlook on blockchain, net economic impact by sector. I believe another PwC report said like market capitalization of about $1 trillion overall. But if you look at the different sectors, especially today, I would highlight the financial services, the one, over 1/10 of $1 trillion, and then almost 1/4 of $1 trillion for manufacturing and construction. Kind of what today I'm going to be talking about a little bit more is looking at like energy trading and KYC and how this fits either like an energy trading model or like supply chain model. So it's kind of interesting the economic impact that was had, and then how I stated this before, but I'm like an institutional economist by training. So looking at like governance structures, transparency, trust, incentives is very interesting for me. Something I like always keep in mind. Probably like a reason why I got attracted after my time or almost 8 years in Russia doing 3 masters, then to come to UCL where I got my last master's and get into like blockchain and then continue to do it at PwC. And then kind of the interesting thing is the average industry margins is only 1.5% on mega capital projects. This could grow maybe with blockchain and cost effectiveness, and then 20% of cost overrun due to errors, and then 75% of projects are over budgets. You can definitely see that as a consultant or individual on like a widespread case, not pinpointing any individual group or company, is the fact that, well, I guess we could use a public example. Just look at in the news with HS2, high-speed rail 2, and how much it's costing, I think it's over now like almost 40 billion. Not the cost overruns, but I think it got estimated like 10 or 20 billion, and now it's already above 40. So you can see, even if you want to look at a public, something that's in the news, that's something you can look at, and then the schedule just keeps going longer and longer, or they don't do like the second track to Leeds. So yeah, just challenges to project controls. Kind of have discussed this already in the conference a lot. Cost, contract, data, risk, reporting, supply chain, and then the processes of like document control, data analytics, schedule management, cost, risk. Risk is really important when we look at a lot of stuff, and we'll talk about in the core of my presentation. And then just deliverables, schedule progress, this all then gets tied back into like the blockchain. Yes, and then engineering, commercial data. This kind of is why I kept this slide, because how it will apply to my workflow, and how I show it. And then purchase orders, kind of if we look at it like an energy trading model. And then documented contract management systems, smart contracts, amended schedule, progress invoicing, and then more gets put onto the blockchain. Benefits, cost, data, contract, process, transparency. And then you can see how this fits into the conference with the digital twin, and the fact of talked about project controls, and then blockchain with BIM, setting up a digital twin like operation and maintenance, and then asset management. You can almost look at the information within like a KPI system, or maybe like a KPI, a KYC subscription system that I'll talk about later. And then this being like a single source of truth, live data streamline. The interesting thing is, I'll talk about governance as well, is the fact how this will change governance structures going forward. So let's get into the example. Just I did a brief overview of blockchain for people that maybe didn't make on Wednesday. So know your customer or know your counterparty. Know your customer obviously comes from traditional banking aspects. I know when I was a wealth manager a lifetime ago, it seems like it was know your customer. But in energy trading, KYC, and supply chain, KYC means also know your counterparty. It's essentially, gathering information, make sure that AML, anti-money laundering, and financial crime aren't being committed. You actually know the person you're trading with, doing business with. You have forms of identification which shows who they are, and you can continually trade with them and know their standing, good or bad, in like a legal interface. So energy companies today sit directly at the intersection of regulation and commerce. Activities have long been key control in financial crime. For risk management, for many organizations, enables them to understand who their counterparties are and assess their related financial crime risks. Applying the requirements under financial crime legislation and regulation can be difficult, especially in energy trading and supply organizations. And then optimizing regulatory compliance continues to be challenged when taking into account many organizations in the sector. And then you can really see it in energy trading, and especially even in like big banks that also like energy trade or commodities trade, is they have relatively small in-house compliance teams. So it's hard when you have these grow, especially in the last 20 years, when you see trading desks have evolved and become bigger and bigger. It's hard for these in-house compliance teams to grapple with. Probably why you have a lot of the fines you have with like the FCA and then SEC in these aspects. And then know your customer, know your counterparty, where blockchain can help with the inconsistencies in developing a regulatory application. a lot of talk amongst engineers and consultants these days is about the changing regulatory environment, and the fact that and what you learn in like blockchain training as well is that's one of the hard things going forward. How are you gonna these smart contracts going to be able to handle and deal with like the changing regulatory requirements as well for like personal identification and protecting people's identification and companies' identification, and then inefficiencies in manual KYC processes will with inability to scale. Obviously, on like private blockchains, scale becomes easier compared to like open public blockchains. And then incomplete data and outdated systems. If you talk around in banking and consulting, everybody still kind of knows this, is that a lot of the trading systems and code are very outdated, even for like these large trading, oil trading, commodities trading organizations, or they have their own internal functions or code that don't really go outside of that institution. Kind of, and so thus digitization is key. So kind of how we look at this in the implementation of KYC is the fact that a project shows the journey KYC check on the blockchain. The idea of we'll get insurance over market KYC, PwC KYC check market for the top 15 energy trading companies, target group high level, target the major companies that major players who are trading with minor players, allowing companies to output the companies they are KYCing with overall KYCing in the energy trading ecosystem. Currently, the KYC trader mostly relies on internal controls to set and receive KYC information across the globe, resulting in slower error point data management governance. Blockchain can solve this by providing immutable, verifiable data sources, implementing a smart contract, addressing the issue of storing the critical data necessary at different stages of KYC. It's kind of like the supply chain diagram that I gave on Wednesday, but I obviously changed. So you would have like initial inspections, maybe like sub-minor traders, then working with the level in between the major traders and other traders. So KYC information in their individual departments would be like siloed up from like sub-minor to minor to major, and then what this is obviously a hypothetical. What PwC could do then is then package this KYC for then selling to the industry at large, which would be the last upper right-hand corner idea of KYC processing and exporting these KYC packages, which could all be like smart contract and put onto the blockchain. And then obviously you have a central, which is the blockchain administration source with like user creation, updation, KYC batch creation, and performance. So we kind of mentioned that there, kind of talked about that a little bit, almost out of time. But what this kind of gets into is the typical logistical chain. This is from case studies in blockchain technology and energy and commodity trading. So obviously many parties, many different data sets, lots of payment structures, difficult, so many parties involved, thus no central depository. Obviously having this on the blockchain and being able to silo up know your counterparty or know your customer information would be beneficial in creating efficiencies and incentives. Kind of coming from like a new institutional economics aspect is incentivization in all of this, which obviously could probably come down to where do we move from this scenario and more streamlined scenario of low cost. Kind of as consultants, costs and risk would probably be at like the forefront of our minds, probably like anything we do, even as individuals within the firm and representing the firm. And then kind of the most important thing to look at, I would say here, is the regulatory uncertainty. but that could be turned into an advantage for big consulting firms, big creating like these KYC packages is actually having the men on the ground that know about like the regulatory change and helping clients map that out going further. This also gets into like data governance structures and the risk with that and that ever-changing climate. And I know from learning from my blockchain courses is how like governance changing and regulatory changing can be risks for smart contracts, which need to evolve consistently with these aspects over time. And then, yeah, that's really kind of, I think I've already almost gone my 15 minutes. And then we tend to overestimate the effect of technology in the short run and underestimate the effect in the long run. So I'm kind of trying to convince PwC partners about, using these proof of concepts to going even further with like letting me code and build stuff like this. Maybe eventually we'll get to a point. So I think thank you.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Very interesting. And it's nice. I like the contrast that you did something very hands-on, and now you're giving this framework background. Really good.